For over 70 years, the Woodcrest Christian School system has had one purpose: to glorify God by pursuing excellence in Christ-centered academics.
You know what? Right here, I have the original sketch of where our school, Woodcrest Christian, first originally started. All we know from the old archives is that this house was on 10th Street. Let's go see if we can find it.
Today, we're opening up the archives and going back to where we started.
70 years ago. So we'll see what exists today, 70 years later, 70 years after the fact. We just don't have anything except this old sketch of what this house is supposed to be like. That's it.
It all began in 1948 in a little rented house in downtown Riverside, right here on 10th Street.
I think this is where it all began. Right here, 70 years ago. You can still see some of the roof line. Looks like they added the porch and an extension there. Boy, it's hard to see it with all the changes over the years, but this is definitely the spot. So back then there were 7 students and 4 teachers. Those 7 students grew, and that 7, by the end of the school year, became 28. And those 28 students in this one house, not a good idea. In fact, the fire marshal actually kicked them out and said they had to go find somewhere else. But for our very first school year, this is the door and the entrance where our students would have walked in every morning and began their classes.
Not many people know that the school started by a woman named Matilda Randall.
Matilda Randall was a marvelous lady. I got to teach with her, actually. I think she was teaching shop when I was teaching 5th grade.
She had a grandson that was getting ready to start kindergarten that year, and so she and a group of women actually went up to Forest Home Christian Conference Center.
And while they were there, they kind of got the vision for starting a Christian school.
In fact, when Matilda Randall decided that our government was taking Christ out of the curriculum, she said that wasn't good enough for her grandson. No, her grandson needed a Christian school here in Riverside, California. And since one didn't exist, she didn't care that she was a grandma. She just rolled her sleeves up and got it done.
That passion just drove Matilda to obedience, and I think that we can learn from that, that we need to be obedient to what God has called us to do, not having any idea how God's going to use that in the future.
Her spirit was just so kind and loving and sacrificial to the kids.
And we would not have Woodcrest Christian School System today if it wasn't for Mrs. Matilda Randall and this house here on 10th Street. By the fall of 1949, our 28 students had been kicked out of the 10th Street location due to the fire marshal. So where did they find to go to school next? We found this spot here on Sunnyside Drive. Just a small, old, abandoned ceramic studio at the time was vacant and available to move our school. And by 1953, in our 4th year here at this spot, we had 161 students, kindergarten through 8th grade, all crammed into the ceramic studio. We were just bursting at the seams. In fact, there were so many students they couldn't even finish the school year here. Clearly, we had to find another spot to call our home. in the spring of 1954, we found a nearby church that opened its doors to us. For 2 school years, our students met together cheerfully, all in one classroom. Yikes! We knew we needed a permanent home. And if you recognize the church behind me, it's because we bought the barley field right next door.
One of the most consistent aspects of the men and women who have served the school over the years has been their trustful and faithful obedience to the Lord. In fact, board members actually took out second mortgages on their homes to help finance the school.
And they came up with the name because back in those years, most Christian schools were boarding schools, and they didn't want parents to be confused about that, so they put the name day school in there so that parents would know that it was a school for Monday through Friday and not a boarding school.
My family has been part of the day school since 1953. That is 65 of the 70 years that the school has existed. My name is Orrin Pence, and I attended the day school here from kindergarten through 6th grade. My grandmother started here in 1953, and she taught 1st grade. In 1958, my mom was a teacher here at the day school, and as I walk these hallways, it's amazing. I can imagine hot dogs for 15 cents, milk for 5 cents. I think I won the 2nd grade spelling bee contest. The memories of the huge swing set. I mean, this wasn't a normal size swing set. It was huge, like you would not jump out of these swings. And then also the library here at the school. It used to be called Randall Hall. It was after Mrs. Randall because she had at her house all these books, and it was like a library. And then down here were just 2 classrooms. The rest of the school met over at the church. This was, a whole area was playground. It was asphalt. And then out here where the grass ends, all that was dirt, all the way to the back. And we had 2 big softball fields here. And this is where we played all those games.
With the property now secure, there was a growing level of excitement as plans and preparations were made for the construction of new buildings and a permanent home.
Construction began on this building in 1956. However, it was a number of weeks until the school was completely finished and ready for classes. And during that time, students met anywhere they could. In fact, some students met right here in this covered breezeway. Some students met next door at the church. And some students even met in a school bus.
And I can picture these big old yellow buses all lined up and parked here. One of the bus drivers was our very own superintendent, Randy Thompson. And it was amazing to think that he started out as a bus driver here at the school and then worked his way all the way up to superintendent before he retired.
And so we were preparing kids to live, and so we wanted to teach the kids character qualities where they are a benefit to God and a blessing to the people around them.
Again and again, board members, friends, and staff and teachers worked for free or very reduced wages just to provide Christian education for the students in the area of Riverside.
It's really special to walk the hallways here. I can't help but think how it really helped my foundation as a Christian, and just the teachers that taught us how they loved us, they loved the Lord, and they taught us the Bible. And I'm proud to say that that's still the main focus of the school.
In the 1950s, the school continued to grow, and we built new buildings, gained students. In fact, by the end of the school's first decade, we had over 300 students. In 1964, we completed one of our major buildings that you might recognize here, the Rotunda. Think of how many thousands of students over the years who have had their programs right here on this stage. But in 1967, the school hired its very first administrator, Mr. Lynn Lamey. Under Lynn Lamey's leadership, the school continued to grow and expand. In fact, even his vision saw another campus beyond this one for our grades 7 through 12.
One thing that really amazes me about Mr. Lamy is that he was a fantastic administrator and really made things happen.
We set off to find a piece of property for our 7th through 12th grade campus. Mr. Lamy considered an old alfalfa field along Tyler Avenue, but it was too expensive. Otherwise, the Tyler Mall could have been Woodcrest Christian. After that, he found a great plot of land on the corner of Alessandro and Troutwine. The price was right, but he didn't need 150 acres. Otherwise, we might have been called Mission Grove Christian. You might be wondering why I'm holding this chicken. It's because after searching far and wide, Mr. Lamy finally found the perfect 20-acre parcel. It just happened to be a poultry farm in rural Woodcrest.
People initially asked me where I got my business education. Truthfully, I got it from my grandmother. It was very simple. She said, buy what you need and only buy what you can pay for and pay for what you buy. Because at that point in time, when we first opened up, we didn't have anything. It's come a long way since then.
Mr. Lamy, purchased the property up at the campus and really started a huge growth of our school system. And one thing I was always amazed at is that he came from a police background. He was a motorcycle officer for the Riverside Police Department.
My focus was on a Christ-centered philosophy.
There's a sign out front that was kind of the start of this, because underneath it was a smaller sign that kind of swung on some hinges, and it said non-denominational. He looked at that sign and he says, well, that says what we're not, but how can we say what we are as a school?
And I took that down and I changed it to Christ-centered academics. I got a plank of wood and cut out with a screwdriver and a chisel the letters and hung up the sign down there. Our desire is to have Christ the center of everything that we do here at the school. Christ-centered people using Christ-centered methods achieve Christ-centered goals. It's that simple.
When I arrived, there were 3 buildings. And on the corner of the middle school building, Christ-centered academics in wooden carved letters, that embodied the philosophy of the school.
And the philosophy basically is that this is God's school. It's not our school, and the buildings and the programs that we have are impressive, but that's not what we're about.
Lynn instilled in us, we want to do this right. We're not going to do it until we can do it right. I'm not just talking test scores, I'm talking about building people. And I think we do that well.
Being the first class at Woodcrest Christian really was a unique experience. It allowed all of us to, in many respects, be pioneers.
Those first couple classes felt like, hey, we're pretty special. We're the first through here.
We're not perfect, but we rely on the Lord and we try to work hard and model that for our students. In the summers, we would work at whatever needed to be done, whether it was weeding or straightening up the campus.
One year, I spent the entire summer finishing the cupboards in the biology room. Everybody pitched in.
Things that we got to do was to pick the seal for the school, the colors, the mascot of the Royals. We got to be the first members of each of the teams.
The first baseball team, the first basketball team, the first team to go to playoffs, the first team to go undefeated in the season. They play volleyball on this old, rough, nasty tar road with an imaginary net.
It's not uncommon for us to spend PE digging holes to put pepper trees, and we certainly never saw that as a burden. We saw that as an opportunity to be of service, an opportunity to be part of really the development of a campus.
When the school's opening the first year, Lynn's spraying the walls. He's out on the big machines helping to grade the property.
We tried to cut this field a little deeper. But over where home plate is, we ran into some granite. And that pretty much told us we can't go any farther back.
One of our big projects was cement work. And if you look on campus, you can still find some DJBs and some CRs in the cement as we christened our work.
Part of the experience too is the people that are here, and God has them here for a reason. And part of that is that they can help build each other. That's neat. That's what we are about as God's people. What more could you ask for?
In our high school time, Dave Burdett joined us as a teacher here, and we embraced Dave and his wife Marilyn. We actually called him Mom and Dad.
In the spring, we would take the entire high school out to Lake Paris for a barbecue. The kids would swim, I'd barbecue, I don't think a student leaves totally. We still have care and heart for them. We pray for alumni regularly. They're still family. When it comes time for graduation, I choke up. I'm gonna miss them. I've invested myself enough in these that part of me leaves too. Retirement's coming up. I'm not looking forward to it. This is fun. I enjoy what I do. The place becomes part of you.
So school life here in the 80s was interesting, and it was amazing for us. We didn't know any different. For me, being up here and playing sports, baseball was the thing that I loved to do, and I played throughout my high school career.
For me, I was involved in choir. I was also a cheerleader.
We didn't have everything that we have today. We didn't have a huge choir room that's insulated. We didn't have a band room.
The campus was completely different. Right out front of where we're sitting was our lunch area. The gym behind us wasn't even here. We didn't have the library. We didn't have the lunch area that now didn't exist at all. Our campus was completely different.
During the 80s, we had exactly what we needed. We graduated with an amazing degree, and one of the things that was great about high school was the staff, the teachers that cared about us at a deep level, and a lot of them are still here today, which is great, which just shows legacy and longevity. Yep. We really learned how to integrate Bible into everything we did, and it really affected the rest of our lives.
During that same decade, the legacy of Christ-centered academics was being built upon in significant ways. As students came home every day with Bible verses and gospel truth, families were being impacted.
My dad was a lawyer in town. He was very involved in the community, and he wanted the best for us. And so he sent us here, and within a year, he really he committed his life to Christ. And from that moment forward, it just changed everything.
Chuck was a driving force in shaping the upper campus into a modern comprehensive school, including spearheading the effort of adding a gym, which was completed in 1998.
Yeah, within a year of my dad coming to Christ, he loved the school and he wanted to help, and so he got involved. He got deeply involved. He was on the school board for 20 years here. He was a superintendent for several years while doing his regular job. He was baseball coach. He was an amazing parent and just an advocate for everything we were doing. So one of the dreams that he had with the school board was to put in a gym, a gymnasium, a pavilion. And just like Lynn Lamy said, they only paid for it as they went, and they counted the cost. And there came a point where they ran out of money, and so they had to pause the project. And that was the same year my dad passed. And about 6 months later, the board decided they were gonna finish the project. And so they did that. They contacted my mom and they said, hey, we want to name it after him. And that's why today we sit in front of the Charles O. White Rose Pavilion.
And Chuck wasn't the only one impacted by the school. Other men, mentored by then Principal Randy Thompson, were led to the Lord and mentored in their faith, building upon the school's historical Christ-centered legacy.
For me, the long-term impact of Woodcrest Christian was really in my character and my Christian worldview. And not until college and after do you understand what it means to be Christ-centered in everything you do. And so what we now have watched for years, not only our own kids, but other kids that have graduated from this school system, this light bulb goes on and they realize, wow, Woodcrest prepared me for college. And then they say, wow, Woodcrest prepared me for life. And so the foundation here was really another part of it, from family to church, but also the school had a big impact on that.
As the new millennium began, we had a vision for expanding our enrollment and facilities. We began a $4.1 million campaign, building this brand new chemistry lab, a new soccer stadium, baseball stadium, new classrooms, and even a band and choral room. Additionally, through the next decade, we began and expanded our ever-growing missions program.
Hi, my name is Amora.
My name is Micah Stolfus.
My name is Taylor.
My name is Grant.
I went to Lost Forest, Belize.
I went to Cayo, Belize. I went to Port Ellsworth, Alaska.
And I've been on 3 missions trips to Belize.
The cool thing I see every year is God meets every kid where they're at on those trips. When they come home, they're changed. Some people it's a short period change, and sometimes they got to go through it again. Sometimes they land back home in LA, and then all of a sudden, man, they just take off running.
Having learned to trust God through these trips is absolutely huge.
God's like giving me insight on how I should live here in California when I learned in Alaska.
You can see that Christianity is more than just whatever it is you experience at school. Christianity is bigger than just Woodcrest, it's bigger than Riverside, it's bigger than even America. Our faith is a global thing, and so seeing the way other people make their relationship with Christ real can really help you figure out, okay, this is how I do it.
Today, almost 20% of Woodcrest Christian School employees are alumni and represent in many ways the over 2,500 graduates that have walked our halls and earned a Royals diploma.
Oh man, if you had asked me leaving my senior year, are you ever gonna come back and work here? Oh man, it would have been such a hard no. Like, never in a million years could I see myself doing that.
Hi, my name is Ben Halsney. I graduated in 2007, and now I am back teaching choir and AP Computer Science.
Hi, I'm Andy Poole. I teach 5th grade, and I graduated in 1998.
Hi, I'm Erin Maris. I graduated in 1998 and I teach the 6th grade.
My name is Alicia Kwan and I graduated in 2007 and I teach life science now for 7th grade.
My name is Priscilla Arias. I graduated in 2007 and I am the middle school administrative assistant.
There are so many things that are exactly the same and so many things that are like completely different.
My favorite part of the campus is the gym. Oh man, I could live in that gym.
Like the library that we're in right now is amazingly different. We always used to have lunch like down by the Pepper Tree, right outside the MP room, and that's like exactly the same.
What stands out is the amazing teachers. I mean, I had some of the greats.
It's hard to not be transported back to being a very, very shy, awkward freshman trying to fit in.
I mean, walking into that principal's office, I was thinking like, are they really gonna hire me? Like, if they remember little Andy Poole, are they gonna hire me in this job right now?
Like when you're a student, you're not thinking about, oh, you know, someone's making a sacrifice for me to be here as much, and you're not realizing all that's getting poured into you.
I came in 7th grade and it felt like home. And be surrounded by people who care about you and pray for you.
And it was very meaningful to me to know that I was loved.
It's a blessing every day I walk into this place.
And ask how your day was or worship the Lord. And
something about this place changes you. It's the joy of the Lord. That's what makes this place different. So it's a family.
Like, this was such a wonderful place to go to school.
One of the weirdest things is working with people who I had to call Mr. something or Miss something.
It was kind of strange to work with our old teachers. They wanted us to call them by their first name, and
calling them by their first names, I still don't.
Now trying to say, hey, how's it going, Shane?
like still feel like, oh, I called him by his first name.
Calling people by their first name that you respect so deeply, it took a long time.
Yeah, no Daves here. Doesn't even sound right.
It's still Miss Leach, Mrs. Stolfus, Mrs. Murdaugh. I would never call him Charlie. Be like, hi Charlie, how are you doing? No, never. It's Coach.
That is really weird, but also really, really cool because, you know, I think the assumption is that they're always going to see you like the freshman or sophomore that you are, but I don't feel that way at all.
Like the staff devotions that we do, like all of the prayer, the conferences.
Here with the love of God surrounding me and teaching with Aaron, and we're doing a little bit every day to bring these kids closer to God.
I feel even more accepted and even more like part of the family, like a peer, which has been really cool.
The people that cared about you then still care about you now.
You know, if ever to even think about going someplace else to teach, like there's no way I'm gonna be able to ever find what I have here.
Looking back now, I just feel like it's just such God's blessing to work at a Christian school. When I started teaching here, it was like September, and we were in the gym watching a volleyball game, and it was like a really distinct moment where I was like, I love this place. Like, I love being back here.
It 100% does feel like just coming home to a family.
The fact that we can pray with students, that I can teach openly about scripture while we're in science class.
Man, I get to preach the gospel every single day. Having all these other teachers that taught me around me, and you can't feel more at home in any other place.
God's called us to be here, and we really want to be that light for them.
It makes everything we do in this classroom worth it.
I had my first group of kids graduate this past year that I really felt like were mine. And you know, with choir, it's such a unique thing because I get to see them like all the way through. So it was really sad and really difficult this past year seeing them graduate. But it was such a blessing to see just how God has like worked in their life throughout years. To see the little by little growth is such an amazing thing. So it's there, like every day you have an opportunity to change somebody's life with one comment, with one interaction, with one conversation. And I couldn't see working anywhere else.
As I look ahead, I am more convinced than ever that the teaching of God's Word, the sharing of the gospel, and preparing students to be a light and model of Christ to a fallen and lost world is more important than ever. With God's provision, the next 10 years will see Woodcrest Christian expand and grow in new and exciting ways. Building upon our $1.5 million solar power project, we foresee new construction on both campuses to modernize and improve our facilities. With our unparalleled growth in the arts, we are seeking innovative opportunities for our amazing artists to share their talents. And we continue to explore and launch new efforts to expand our academic and athletic offerings and provide rich opportunities for students to both grow and walk confidently in their faith.
It's crazy to think that Woodcrest Christian started with just 7 students. Our alumni now include graduates from Annapolis, West Point, Harvard, and Oxford University. They've gone on to be teachers, doctors, lawyers, peace officers, pastors, and locally elected officials. Some have even gone on to be professional athletes, NASA engineers, deep space astronomers, a presidential speechwriter, and missionaries serving all over the globe. And to think, it all started 70 years ago in a little house on 10th Street.